Hi all, this is going to be my second video tutorial in the WCF video tutorial series. So the first tutorial I explained the concepts of WCF, the use, the life before and after WCF and things like that. So with this tutorial I'm going to be more practical with the things. So right now in this tutorial I'm trying to cover the following topics. First one is creating a WCF library. Second one is creating the service contracts, operation contracts and data contracts for the WCF service. Third one is implementing the service contract, and the fourth one is going to be testing the service library using WCF client. And then the last topic, configuring the service to support multiple protocols. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new project. So I'll go and create a blank solution now, which I name it as WCF video tutorial. I'll save it into my local folder. So again I'll go and create a new project which is going to be of type WCF library. So again, if you have seen my first tutorial, I have mentioned that the first an important aspect that you need to understand before you learn WCF is that a WCF service can really be separated from the hosting environment, whereas if you see a web service, it's a service which can be hosted only in web, whereas here we have the ability to say, okay, this is my WCF service and I will host it in web, or I will host it in any other environment which I want. So if you select WCF service application here, what you're going to get is a WCF service which is hosted in web, which is more like a web service. We don't need that, so we select a WCF service library, and I'm calling it WCF service library itself. So we the first thing which we need to check is in the references, what do we have? All the classes which are required for a WCF service comes under two namespaces. One is system.service_model and the second one is system.runtime.serialization. And so we have these two things here as we created a service WCF service library itself. If we are creating a class library, we would have to add these things as references. We have two classes here. So first thing what I'm going to here is I don't want these names. Instead I want something like I employee uh, I employee service.cs. So it'll ask me whether all the references need to be changed. Say yes, otherwise you are going to mess up with a lot of references in the web.config and other files. So again, there is another class called service1.cs. I'm going to rename it as employee service.cs. Okay, say yes again. So now what I need, I don't want these contents. I'm going to clean all these things up from both the classes. Okay, so I've cleaned up the classes. Now we can start with our code. So first thing is going to be I employee service. It's an interface which is a service contract. So when you say service contract, I've already explained a service contract determines what all are the services going to be provided. So this is nothing but an interface which defines the methods which the WCF service is going to expose. If you can see the this is defined as a service contract. If we remove these two things, you will see that the service contract is not there anymore. So the service model is the important thing as far as a service contract is concerned. And runtime.serialization will deal with all the serialization things. So data contracts and things like that come under runtime serialization. So right now what we are going to do is I'm going to define some methods which will define the service contract. I'm saying get employee by ID, which takes an input parameter which is an integer, and then another method called get all employee, which do not take any parameter. So now we need to say what is the return type for this particular methods. So I say I am going to return employee data as a return type for get employee by ID, and for get all employee I'm going to give return a list of employee data. Now it says these classes are not defined, so we'll go and define these classes first. So I like all my data contracts to be in a separate folder, so I add a folder called data contract, and then I add a new class called employee data. Added the class. I'll make it public as this needs to be used by the clients when they uh, consume our service, and the proxy should expose this, so I say this is going to be public. Now I need to add some properties to this class. I say int employee ID get set, and I want this to be public. Then I say int employee age, again public with get and set. Then I say salary, again integer, get set, and finally I say string employee name. So now I have the class which is the return type for these particular methods. Now what I need to do is, since that belongs to the different namespace, I say WCF library dot data contract. Now these classes are identified. So we define the service contract, we define the methods which are which needs to be part of service contract. But now these methods will be part of service contract but will not be exposed to the client. Why? Because we did not mention that this is a operation contract. So these two methods I'm defining it this as operation contract, so that when somebody consume or I employee service, the service contract I employee service, then they should be able to access this method. So whichever methods need to be accessed by the client should be operation contract. Now this operation contract returns the employee data. Now how will we return the object? It should be a serializable object, so we didn't define this as a serializable object, right? So what we need to do is we need to say this particular class is a data contract. So if you remember the my old tutorial, I've already said whatever data needs to be sent in and out, it could be either two things. One thing is it could be a of primitive type like string, bool, int, float, double, etc., or else it should be a data contract. So I want to define my class as a data contract. It says data contract is not found, so the reason being you should be using system dot, you don't need to use component model here because data contract comes under the serialization. So it should be system.runtime.serialization. Added this, so say this is a data contract. So you say this service contract I employee has two operation contracts which returns employee data contract employee data, or list of data contracts, list of the employee data contracts. Now even if the client need to access these particular things, it's not about accessing. If the client needs to get these particular values, we should mention that these are data members. Each of these methods should be a data member. If property is not a data member, the client is not going to get this. While doing the serialization to send the data to the client, the WCF framework will just remove these properties which are not mentioned as data members. So right now what we have is employee service iEmployee service contract, and we define the operation contracts, and we define the data contracts. Now we need to implement this particular service. So we have a class employee service which has which implements iEmployee service. What we need to do is we need to implement these two methods. Again, for the data contracts, used to specify the namespace here, otherwise it will not be identified. So again, I say this is public. Here also I say this is public. So in the iEmployee service, we just say operation contract and the signature. What is going to be the method name? What is the type of the input parameter, and what is the return type? We don't mention any access specifiers in the service contract. So this is where the access specifiers comes to the picture. So I already have a solution which I created for this purpose. I'll just copy the things from here. So I'll say get employee by ID. I will just return the employee ID, nothing else. So sorry, I'll just create a employee object with I'll just create an employee object with the employee ID as the input parameter, and for get all employees, I'll just create 3-4 employee objects, and then just return that back. So this is going to be our WCF service. So one more important thing, if you go to app.config, you will see that there is a tag called service model. This tag has everything related to our WCF service, and this is what a client uses to access our WCF service. So if you see here, there are two endpoints. One of the endpoint is for downloading the proxy, and another endpoint is to communicate with WCF service using WSHTP binding. So it says this particular endpoint whose address is empty, which means it will use the base address. So if you access the WCF service using this particular base address, you will be communicating using WSHTP binding, and you will be getting iEmployee service. So with that, we have created our first WCF service library.